Well, hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. You're listening to News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. What an easy time to be a talk radio host. You should be so jealous of me right now. I mean, what a dream it is to do my job in the face of such clownery. Because you know what we're going to start off talking. This isn't what we're going to do the entire show, so don't get too fatigued here. But I enjoyed day number 4 more than days number 1, 2, and 3. But I'm really enjoying. I'm not enjoying the riot. It's terrible. The destruction of property, people being hurt, cops being hurt, things like that. That's all bad. The part I'm enjoying though is the reaction to it. Once an exciting event happens, good, bad, indifferent, it's part of our human response to look at the people to the left and look at the people to the right and see what they think of this too. Or I do. I'm a total people person. I'm a big extrovert, and I just love people. They fascinate me. Their reactions fascinate me. And so in the face of something like this, one thing I enjoy is for all the people who, wave the Team Blue flag, people who vote Team Blue, wear Team Blue jerseys. You're the bad guys in this. You're quite obviously out of the two mainstream ideologies, the left and the right, you guys are the only ones that set cars on fire. Did you know they were looting stores last night? Because, that's how you bring justice to people who are being illegally deported or without due process or fascist or whatever. We go get 10 pairs of Air Force Ones. That ought to set things straight. That's how you get justice. That's what our founding fathers stood for. That's what Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement stood for you to get some shoes. Oh, it's great, man. Like the longer this goes on, they'll never admit it to your face. But they have to be either embarrassed, and if they're not embarrassed, then they just don't realize that this pushes people. This looks bad. This makes you look bad. For dispassionate third-party observers, people who don't know, am I on Team Red or am I on Team Blue? Which team do you want to be on? The one that scratches Teslas and firebombs cars, and every time there's some sort of political grievance, whether it's free Palestine, whether it's some sort of racial grievance, or now whether it's deporting illegal immigrants, they got to go block roads. They got to get the cops out there in their riot gear. They got to make the line. They got to push them off. Things catch on fire. People start chucking bricks. Really? You think that's how you fix things around here? See, because these are the people who are telling you that you need to be worried about the threats to democracy. We should put like a little TM next to that. Like it's a threat to democracy. Like the little TM trademark sign there. If you are trying to enact political change by violence, intimidation, coercion, property destruction, that's a threat to democracy. What does Team Red do when things don't go their way? When there's some sort of enforcement mechanism, or when there's some sort of edict from on high that tries to change their life without going through the proper democratic channels? Remember during COVID when you weren't allowed to go to church? Did you chuck any bricks at any cop cars? No, I didn't either. Because we're the decent human beings. We're the civilized ones. It's quite easy to see which one's civilized, which one's peaceful, and which one's the more barbaric. And I'm not saying everyone that's on Team Blue is a barbarian. Don't misunderstand me. But everyone that is a barbarian chucking bricks at cop cars, they're all on Team Blue. There's not a Team Red constituency that does that. Is that who you want to associate yourself with? You can still believe whatever you want to believe about social issues or economic issues, but are these your people? It happened in Dallas as well. We had some great coverage. Actually, round of applause for WFAA because they broke into coverage and they were doing some live coverage of the protests last night, and it's not nearly the same as it is in LA. The cops let them block a street for about an hour, and then they got on their little plastic shields and their bicycle helmets or whatever they're wearing. They made the line, and they pushed them out of the intersection so people could get home from work or picking their kid up from soccer practice or whatever people are doing last night. And the people here were a lot more civilized. There was one guy that got right into the cop line. I don't know if he thought he was playing some sort of really hyped up game of Red Rover or whatever, but he just ran into the cop line. They put him down. They arrested him. And I think there was only one arrest. Isn't that what they were reporting this morning? WFAA said there was one arrest. So a couple of clips from their coverage last night. This is from when they made the phalanx and they started pushing them because they were in the little park that's by the bridge that they love to protest on. They should just rename that the old protest bridge. But when they got into the streets, they let them linger for about an hour, and this is when they started pushing them back. This was WFAA live last night.
As you see the protesters being boxed in, and you see some of them starting to run away. So it certainly appears as though the police tactics are beginning to work. But we do know that people have been taken into custody tonight. Okay, I'm being told that there is some sort of gas being deployed there, pepper spray or gas. And you also, I think I just saw on the bottom of the screen there, some sort of objects that looks like being tossed perhaps at police. Kind of hard to tell from that wide shot, but it does look like a little bit of a clash going on from our chopper shot.
Yeah, and from what I saw, I didn't watch like the whole 2 hours of it. I did watch a good chunk of it. I saw some water bottles being thrown at cops.
Thank you for that, Teresa. Yeah, we feel like we're in a safe position here where we can watch all of this unfold. That was a firework thrown by a protester there, not a flashbang grenade there. We have seen police officers deploy tear gas or gas of some kind to some of these protesters, which got them all out of the street now and back into that park area before. You can see they're clearing some of these trucks out of the road here now too from our vantage point. But we continue to see these clashes, including protesters throwing water bottles at these police officers. We can see the haze of smoke in the distance here too as Dallas police begin to move in to clear this protest.
All right, coming up next, the media coverage on the mostly peaceful protest in LA, laughably dishonest. You'll hear the Grabian montage, just some of the worst examples of the mostly peaceful protest coverage coming up next. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227, and then we'll get a reaction from Jim Varney from Real Clear Politics on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Been to any good protests lately? We had a fun one in Dallas last night. Not nearly as many fireworks, both metaphorically and literally, as the Los Angeles fireworks. But there was some fireworks that were thrown at the Dallas protest last night. Now, I want to shift the angle here and not talk about the protests themselves, but let's just can we enjoy how much the media is beclowning itself in their coverage of it? Because, the idea that the news is some sort of dispassionate, unbiased third-party observer that's just bringing you the facts. I mean, you've known probably for decades that that's not true. And so how do you spin this? If you're a propagandist, if you're someone who knows that this could hurt the narrative if you don't present it in the right way, how do you prevent it? Well, one way that they're doing it is trying to say this is all Trump's fault. Yes, these are all Trump supporters out there. Trump controls how the other side acts. He's a powerful guy. But they also have to downplay what's happening on the ground, and they are going out of their way to call it peaceful. Oh, they found overwhelmingly peaceful protest again. Not January 6th. That wasn't overwhelmingly peaceful. Though when you have buildings on fire and cars on fire and shoe stores being looted and people dying and people getting hurt, and there's just smoke and chaos, and the foreign flags of 28 other countries are flying around, including Mexico and Palestine. Overwhelmingly peaceful. Graven put together the best montage just from the last couple days.
The LA County Police say that they have it under control. Carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. The president is sending the National Guard because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
The unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people, most of whom are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, I don't think the National Guard is needed now. Things in LA are calm. There was a protest that got a little unruly late at night.
There have been no violence where anybody that was protesting hit anybody, shot anybody, threatened anybody. Nothing has happened.
What is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn.
Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. People were driving by, honking their horns.
Oh, my God. I could listen to that for hours. My next guest, James Varney from Real Clear Politics. Your reaction to the Gravian montage where they're downplaying these were just peaceful riots, James.
Hi, James. I had not heard that Tom Elliott supercut thing. I think that's who does that, or maybe it's John Gabriel. But my favorite is the guy that says, just people having some fun watching cars burn. I mean, come on.
That's a good time.
See that every day in the streets of the city. And I do think, and you mentioned this a little bit in your preamble before playing that can you imagine like you and I and a bunch of other Americans like down in the Zocalo in Mexico City setting fires and waving American flags like while we're wearing masks and all this? I think the Mexicans would be quite understandably ticked off about it. And I don't think they'd like it. I don't think they should like it. I think that's obnoxious. I don't see any reason for us to do something like that. And I think that this whole thing and the images that have come out belie what everybody was saying right there.
Do you think third-party observers, people who are otherwise neutral, can see through this, or do they buy the people on TV that are telling them this is mostly peaceful?
Well, it's hard for me to speak for all those people, right? I mean, millions of people do watch the network news. Millions of people get this kind of story in their local paper, probably from the Associated Press. So in other words, they're getting a very liberal version of what happened. I do think that there are plenty of people out there pointing out what's going on for real. I've also seen some stuff, Data Republican, small r, on Twitter, and some other people have been showing her. Some of the yes, she's excellent. Some of the nonprofits, the NGOs, as they're called, that have been organizing this and financing this, and probably some of the same people that are behind this day of rage we have coming up, I guess, in a couple weeks. So the news is out there. I think that there is plenty of avenues for people to get a clear picture of what's happening, but I certainly can't say which version they're going to accept or which way they're going to think.
Well, I'm also interested, this is James Varney from Real Clear Politics, in the angle that Trump started it. They were peaceful protests until Trump sent in the National Guard, and it's Trump's fault that this ever escalated into something where things caught on fire.
Right. It would be interesting to see a timeline, wouldn't it? And it was striking to see the difference between what Trump was doing and what we were hearing from Kevin Bass and Gavin Newsom and California elected officials, who seemed to be, if not encouraging what was happening, totally simpatico with it. So whether or not by the time the National Guardsmen got boots on the ground right there, maybe the peak of the fires and the whatnot had come. I don't know that, but certainly it didn't look like a situation that anybody in Los Angeles or California had any interest in putting a cap on or stopping. And these things can spill over. And look, we hear this all the time, except in contexts like this. The people who are going to be hurt the most by this are the people who live in those neighborhoods where this stuff is going on. So there is definitely a necessary protection to all of this, but I think the president was right to go down. Look at the damage that was done during the Summer of Love. You don't want a repeat of that.
Absolutely. All right, this is James Varney from Real Clear Politics. When we continue, I want to hear his response to Governor Gavin Newsom saying, number one, Trump wants a civil war, and number two, you stop this by ending the deportation order. Now, that's not how this is going to end, is it? We'll ask James Varney, and I'll answer that as well coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Are we about to do another whole summer of love? This is James Varney from Real Clear Politics, continuing with this. Is this going to be something that's going on for months, Varney? Because I'm kind of sniffing that feeling now, because we've been doing this for 4, now going on 5 days. We have a big round of national protests coming up this week, and they have another one scheduled for like 2 weeks after that. I think they want to do another 2020.
It does look that way. And I think the reaction to this is what's really remarkable, right? So you were mentioning before the break about how they're trying to say this is Trump's fault. Well, this is a reaction to something that Trump is doing. That's true. But it's in no way a proper reaction. It's in no way in line with public safety and the law. It's insane. I mean, 2 things. One is, I think when DeSantis flew those illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard a couple of years ago, they wanted the National Guard called out about them. That was just a couple dozen guys at an airport. And there was a Vermont, I think she's a U.S. rep recently, you might have seen this, who said, if we don't stop this, we're not going to have anybody to wipe our ass. Pardon my language. That's a quote, though. And so there's this whole echo in the modern Democrats today of who's going to pick the cotton, and they don't seem to hear it. But I find that astounding. And then if you look at the reaction that people had when Biden was in office, right? Because everybody's acting as if history began on January 21st, but a lot of this, or almost all of it, is in reaction to what Biden did. So, for example, you take that town in Ohio, if you remember this during the election, where suddenly several thousand Haitians were put there. Nobody really quite knows who put them there or how they all got there.
No, it's just organic. There's no organization there. Just a coincidence. 30,000 coincidences happened in a row.
But I didn't see them setting cars on fire and having a mini riot or a full-blown riot. They voted. Now, you were saying, or not you, but the news break just now that you had, they were saying how California officials are going to court to try and stop Trump from mobilizing the National Guard there in California. I think we all know they're going to find a judge in California that's going to rule that. But that also is, at least in theory, right, the proper response. You try to go to court. You try to have elections. You don't burn things. You don't smash windows. And I don't understand why they seem to think that this is not only okay, but this is a completely understandable reaction, and we need more of this. I don't get that. And I think that when the message comes out that this is fine, that heightens the chances that we are going to have a repeat of the Summer of Love.
Well, it's almost like they need to do this every few years or so. How often does LA riot? And you know what I'm reminded of is, we don't do this on Team Red. We don't go out in the street and scream our heads off or scream at the sky or set things on fire. But if you want to go to the classic Orwell novel 1984, there were the 2 minutes hate, which was at the very beginning of the book. And I remember not understanding, why is this even important? Why would he include this when I was in high school? But now I see this is kind of how they keep the fire burning.
An evil tumor growing, spreading in our midst. Shout! Shout! Shout out his name!
So then they put Goldstein, the supposed antagonist, on the screen at the theater, and everyone's supposed to just go nuts at it for 2 minutes. And so, I
remember,
I feel like that's what's going on here.
It wasn't only at the beginning of the book. That was something that happens to Winston at the beginning of the workday every day. So this is how they start things off, is by having people completely riled up, completely directing hate toward one side. There is no reasonable other side. There is no discussion or debate.
Right, but
everything is crystal clear. And if it becomes violent, that's fine.
So they take
on the right side.
They take this knife of hate and they just sharpen it, and they sharpen it with these protests and with these images and with the giant rhetoric. And soon you have a group of people who are so emotional, so divorced from logic, that they're willing to overlook Biden's cognitive decline for 5 years, even though it was happening in front of his face, and just pretend to not see reality, because really a guy with mashed potato brains would be better than literally Hitler. So once you convince the them that they're fighting literally Hitler, you can get them to set cars on fire. You can get them to chuck bricks at cops. You can get them to vote for a guy that's a human Roomba.
No, you're right. I mean, they're putting the justification there. And I think it's especially troubling when you see the alleged leadership of the opposition encouraging this or failing to call things what they are. That's how you get more of it. And it's really difficult to conclude that they don't want more of it when they don't come out and say, this is out of line. This is not how we're going to do this. And again, we go back to what I was saying a moment ago, is that you did not see anything like this from 2021 to January 2025. But there was certainly awful things going on, illegal things going on. They were certainly prodding people, it seemed. So I don't understand why they feel that any of this is appropriate or that any of this is okay. But I think the message that they do think that is kind of unmistakable.
All right, well, it's fun. We'll keep an eye on it for you. And this is James Varney, Real Clear Politics. What you got coming up for us?
Actually, it's a story about immigration court. Spending some time in immigration court here in New Orleans and just letting readers know what all is going to happen, right? So you see all these stories about deportations and arrests. And, of course, there has been this incredible plummeting of people coming over the border. So of the millions of people here, most of them aren't going to be flown on airplanes to prisons in El Salvador. Most of them are going to get resolved one way or another in immigration court. So we're taking a look at that.
All right. I look forward to it. RealClearPolitics.com, RealClearInvestigations.com is his website. This is James Varney. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Coming up on the James Show, Gavin Newsom was asked, how do you stop the riots? Well, I have some ideas. And his ideas are just ludicrous. So we'll compare his ideas to mine. And if you have any, 800-288-9227. That's next. How do you stop these riots? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM. WBAP. Well, riots continue for now through day 4. Are we going to get a day 5? Can I get a day 5? Anyone a day 5? You going to get a day 5? Anyone a day 5? I think we are going to get a day 5. I think we might get a whole summer of this. And so what's going to stop it? Well, Trump says send in the National Guard, maybe some Marines. That might stop it. Gavin Newsom was asked, how do you stop it? He had a much different answer. And I don't think this is an acceptable answer. I think he may be betraying a little bit of the truth, but I don't know if that's going to help his cause much. First, Trump wants a civil war is his talking point. Okay, let's hear this real quick.
These groups come in. They have nothing to do with these peaceful protesters. These poor peaceful protesters. These guys come in to take advantage of these moments, and that's exactly what we knew would happen. That's exactly what Trump knew was going to happen. That's exactly what his team knows. They help create these conditions to inflame them. This is Donald Trump's mess. What you see in your nightly news is Donald Trump's making, and we've got to clean up this mess. If he can't do it, we're going to have to do it.
All right, I know you're about to crash your car laughing so hard at the idea of, well, why did Donald Trump make them set those cars on fire? Why did Donald Trump make them loot a Foot Locker last night? I can't believe Donald Trump made them do all this and chuck bricks at cops. God, Donald Trump's. But remember, half the country believed these people when they were told Jussie Smollett got jumped by guys in MAGA hats. Half the country believed them when they said the Hunter laptop was Russian disinformation. Half the country still believes when they're like, I don't know where this baggie of cocaine came from in the White House. They believed about masks and vaccines and all that stuff. These are the same people. Inflation's transitory. Oh, yeah, this will just go away in a matter of months. So with that terrible setup of, yeah, this is Trump's doing, and he's doing this because he wants a civil war. How do you end this, Gavin Newsom? Listen to this.
So what you're saying and what he's saying, very heated rhetoric. How do we cool this down? How do we get things to calm down? How do we get the streets at this point to be safe?
Donald Trump needs to rescind his order, period.
So don't enforce immigration law. Don't do these mass deportations. No, I don't think that's an acceptable way. That's your demands. You're just going to keep tearing stuff up, blocking highways, setting cars on fire, destroying property, looting businesses, assaulting cops until we stop deporting people, doing the mass deportations. No, the answer is no. We can't do this. And Miss Parker kind of fussed me over the weekend because there was a guy who called in last week and said he was for open borders. And I told him he was dumb. I mean, I was a little more graceful about it. There's more of a rhetorical flourish. But I went back and listened. She was right. I was kind of condescending. But I hate having to go back to square one. Do I really have to explain to people why we can't have open borders? Why we can't have unfettered illegal immigration streaming into our country? Well, I got a couple of examples. Number one, how'd that work out for the Indians? How did we get this country? How did it get taken over? How is this before Christopher Columbus? There was no Europeans that had any system of government over here, or people of European descent, I should say. Our Western civilization wasn't here yet. A couple hundred years later, all of a sudden, America is a thing, and we're in charge, and the Indians are not. How did that happen? Sounds like unfettered, massive illegal immigration, right? How did we get Texas? That used to be a part of Mexico, only for about 16 years. But in that small little span of time, what did we have? We had tens of thousands of illegal immigrants from the United States flood into this country. And when we far outnumbered the native population, otherwise native population, we petitioned the mother country for annexation. We rebelled. We kicked out Santa Ana. That's how we got this place, was unfettered illegal immigration. So if I have to go back and explain that every show, I mean, it's going to be a bit of a pain, but if I need to, give me the reminder. So on the contrast to that, if that's not what needs to stop the riots, what does need to stop the riots? There was a guy that called in. He had a good idea. Water cannons. Can we still use water cannons? I don't know. I don't know, because, I mean, I think legally we can. But I saw something online that I don't know if this is true or not. But if it is true, it's a great idea. That in Japan, they don't use water cannons. They do spray them with water, but the water has a blue dye on it. So anyone who was blocking the street or rioting or protesting, it's hard to wash off, and you can go find them later and arrest them, and that could be evidence used against them. So you're not hurting them with water, you're tagging them with dye. And I love that idea. How have I never heard that before until some random person on X/Twitter floated it across my social media feed? But how do we break up riots? Oh, we know how to break up riots. We know how to end it. They're just threatening to keep the violence, intimidation, and property destruction going until they can achieve their political end. And that meets the dictionary definition of terrorism. And that is an anti-democratic tactic. You know, if you're so in love with democracy, the threat to our democracy, the fascist in democracy, then wouldn't you want to affect change through the ballot box, through the democratic process? But here you are circumventing the democratic process, because we had the democratic process. And a majority of Americans and a majority of states said that we want to vote for this guy who's going to do the mass deportations. And the mass deportations are happening through the democratic process. And so you don't like the result of the democratic process. So you're not even a pro-democracy protester. You're a terrorist using violence, intimidation, property destruction for a political end. Terrorist. So how do you stop the riots? Easy. Bring in the cops, push them out the street. Everyone who did it, you get arrested. You get the January 6th treatment. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. What would be your idea for ending the riots? I kind of like the idea of spraying them with dye, with some sort of ink or whatever to mark them, go pick them all up. But I think that the January 6th treatment, all you got to do is subpoena the cell phone data, find out everyone who was blocking the street at a certain time. We can geolocate all these people. Give them the January 6th treatment. That'll end all this stuff before Friday. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, the media's histrionics on the National Guard being called in. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. If you want to win a family 4-pack of Rangers tickets, they're taking on the Kansas City Royals next Wednesday, June 18th, 7:05 Globe Life Field. It's Dollar Hot Dog Wednesday, presented by Texas Chili Company. Get tickets at TexasRangers.com, or it's one of our contests we have rolling right now. The same number I'm giving out for you to call into the show. You can use that. Text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. You'll be entered in a contest to win a family 4-pack of tickets. That's Rangers. Text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM and WBAP. Oh, my goodness. Breaking news just since the show started. Number one, not only are you kind of upset at the riots we're seeing in L.A., apparently God is too. There was a 3-point-something magnitude earthquake that just happened in Los Angeles, according to some early reports. All right, keep angering God. Is that just a coincidence? And then also I saw the Congressional Black Caucus right before the James Show started. This came across my social media feed, and I had to go dig it out. Congressional Black Caucus did a press conference in Washington, D.C., and during the question and answer session, the lady who runs the Congressional Black Caucus kind of laid her cards out on the table. Her name's Yvette Clarke. She's a Democrat from New York. She was asked if all these egregious things that she was attributing to Trump, if it rise to the level of impeachment. You're not going to believe her response.
I see you. Yes.
You've described what Trump is doing in Los Angeles as lawlessness and unconstitutional and a violation of human rights. Do these things rise to the level of impeachment? Are these impeachable offenses?
Well, I believe it is. I definitely believe it is. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Oh, we know you're going to impeach him. You've already made up your mind to impeach him. You're just looking to backfill in the blanks like it's some sort of reverse Mad Lib here. Y'all, we know you're going to impeach him. You impeached him twice just for what, a phone call to Ukraine for January 6th. Okay. This is, remember this. This is the thumbtack that I want you to push into your memory bank. Whenever the impeachments come and they bring it back to this is where you heard it first. You knew that they were going to do it. And who wants to put some money on that? Who thinks Trump's going to get impeached sometime in the next 4 years? There's like a 98% chance. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm hesitant to say 100% on most things. But on this one, I'll ratchet it all the way up to 98%. Someone is going to try to impeach this guy. I don't know if they're going to have to go through the whole trial or whatever, but there will be a full effort. So we have those two things that are happening on top of what was already going on. I want to rewind it back to last year. Let's jump in. I brought the flux capacitor. We're going to go back to February of last year, 2024. Feels like eons ago. Remember February of 2024 when Joe Biden was still sharp as a tack? That's how long ago this is. But it was only a few months ago. It's like 15 months ago? So MSNBC was predicting that there would be unrest across America, and it's coming soon. They just got the source of it completely wrong. The source of their rage that they were concerned about was white rural rage. In fact, two guys had written a book called White Rural Rage, and they were guests. And it's not like they were on for 2 minutes either. I think they were on for a half hour or whatnot, talking about how all of America needs to be scared because the rural white people are coming after them.
Joining us now, Professor of Political Science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage.
And his name's Paul Waldman, not Paul Wallman.
The threat to American democracy. And Tom, I'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. So we provide the receipts in Chapter 6.
Do you understand how crazy that is? They're basing it. Look, you need to be scared of white rural people based on these polls. Hang on, I'll let him finish. But
they're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalist. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of...
So what have you seen in the last few months? On New Year's Day, let's just do this year. On New Year's Day, when a guy ran a car through a crowd of people on Bourbon Street, He was shouting free Palestine. Was that white rural rage or was that a lefty constituency? Because they were floating Palestine flags in Los Angeles over the weekend. And even at the protest that was happening here in Dallas last night, I saw on the reporting here, the video, Palestinian flags. Nah, that's on your team, bud. When 2 Jewish diplomats get gunned down, get shot in the back, leaving the Jewish Heritage Museum in D.C. 4 weeks ago, the guy was yelling free Palestine. When the guy was burning Jews alive with a makeshift flamethrower, shouting free Palestine, was that white rural rage? Has there been any white rural politically motivated violence since they said this? Or how about this? How about in your entire life? See, you're told to be scared of white people in rural areas. That is the safest place you can be. Rural America, and I find that so disgusting here because you have scared so many people into thinking, the scariest, dangerous part of America is if you leave the big city, when just the opposite is true. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal of TexasDefenseFirm.com is going to explain to you the legality of Trump sending in the National Guard to the LA riots. Is that constitutional? Find out next. 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. You're listening to News Talk 820 93.3 FM, WBAP. Joining me now is the legal analyst for the James Show, the great Jeremy Rosenthal from TexasDefenseFirm.com. And I got some questions for you because there's a constitutional crisis happening, Jeremy. Welcome back to the show, first of all. Okay, so I'm hearing people on TV, on Team Red, they're saying Trump deploying the National Guard to California is righteous. On Team Blue, they're saying it's unconstitutional. Which one's correct, Jeremy? So am I going to hear the words posse comitatus? Yeah, oh, don't be coy with me. Just tell me the answer. Well, what I see, and we're talking with Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com, what I see from the amateur legal experts, like myself, I'm definitely maybe a top-seeded amateur, but not a pro. People keep bringing up the Posse Comitatus Act. The other one is the Insurrection Act. And there's a video that's floating around of Donald Trump in 2020 being asked why he doesn't call in the National Guard to the George Floyd protest. And they're using this as like a gotcha. We're like, see, even Trump admitted he can't send in the National Guard.
We have laws. We have to go by the laws. We can't move in the National Guard. I can call insurrection, but there's no reason to ever do that. Even in a Portland case, we can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor.
So if that holds true, I think the key to that is unless I declare an insurrection. And so if the Insurrection Act says if there's an insurrection, he could legally deploy a National Guard or other military troops without the governor's approval. Does my amateur analysis check out? Agreed. Well, I haven't gotten paid for it yet, so only then would I dare call myself pro. But Diane over here on Facebook left a comment, and I think this is directed at you because you mentioned that he's allowed to deploy the Marines as long as it meets some certain qualifications. So she says, are the Marines in Los Angeles to protect federal property and free up federal police to help LA police. And she says federal law enforcement officers can be commissioned as peace officers in state or local jurisdictions, and a longer explanation under that, but sort of the same tact. So as long as they're not actually arresting people, the Marines can go and protect federal buildings. I think a lot of people are just trying to nail that part down. Hey. Okay, I have a couple more good questions that came in through the email. Do you have time for another segment? Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe you have to run into immigration court or something real quick. We're talking with Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. If you have any questions for him, send them to me on the break. He'll answer a couple of the email questions coming up next. James at WBAP.com, or you can send me a message on Facebook or YouTube or X, or you know how all this works. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hello, homeowners. Listen. Your roof has taken an absolute beating in 2025. It's probably worse than most years that your roof has been up there taking beatings. It might take a little bit more of a beating this week. If you have any doubt, if you're missing a shingle, if you think you see water weeping through, or you have some questionable rotted looking board in your gables, anything, there's no downside to getting the free inspection. If your roof's okay, they'll come out, they'll look at it, they won't charge you anything. So you have no reason to not get your roof inspected. Go to blueribbondfw.com. It takes less than an hour. They say it takes an hour. I guess that's if you have like a palatial mansion or whatever. But the old Parker compound, the whole thing took 40 minutes tops. And that includes the conversation we had afterwards when he was showing me the pictures of a couple suspicious spots. We went over some of the options. If I was going to need a roof, here's the different types of shingles. Here's the different types of styles and cuts. And this is what a ridge vent looks like. And so you had it all explained to you. It didn't take long at all. And really, that's all you have to worry about 40 minutes of your time to meet with them and make sure your roof is okay. However, if you do catch something, this will be the smartest call you make all day. Go to blueribbondfw.com. blueribbondfw.com. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. If you want a copy of the Rhino list, send me an email, james@wbap.com. Every time I say that, about 18 to 30 people want a copy of the state representatives you sent to Austin that had an R next to their name but voted with the D's on so many important issues, including why your property taxes are probably going to stay disappointingly high. Jeremy Rosenthal continues. He's a legal analyst on the James Show, and he does TexasDefenseFirm.com. So I want to start with some questions that I got. Two of these are via email. One of them is via Facebook message. Christina says on Facebook, can Newsom or Karen Bass be arrested? Now, I think this is predicated on the interview with Tom Homan over the weekend where he was asked about that. And I have that audio so I can play it, catch everyone else up.
You've also mentioned Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom, and there have been threats, previously that if you stand in the way of your enforcement operations, you could be subject potentially to arrest. Are you saying that about Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom? Are they at risk of being arrested?
I'll say it about anybody. You cross that line. It's a felony to knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien. It's a felony to impede law enforcement from doing their job.
Do you think that the mayor of LA is doing that?
If she crossed that line, we'll ask the DOJ to prosecute. Do I think she's crossed the line? I don't think she's crossed the line yet. But I'm telling you, the warning we're sending is we're not going to tolerate people attacking our officers.
So my interpretation of that is, I guess they could be arrested, but I don't expect them to get arrested. What do you think about that, Jeremy? Yeah. All right, and thank you, Christina, for the question. Just include your town, too, so I can say Christina from, Watauga or wherever you're from. Next question. This came in an email, james@wbap.com, from Matt in Dallas. Give 1 point to Matt for actually including his city. He says, I know you're talking with the lawyer on hold about Trump sending troops into L.A. I've been hearing that if Governor Abbott does not sign or veto the THC cannabis hemp ban, it goes into law June 22nd. Will you verify if this is correct or not with the lawyer during your segment? All right, that kind of took a left turn, but your response to that?
Smoke weed every day.
Yeah, so vape them if you got them, I guess. Next question comes from, CJ in North Richland Hills. Thank you, CJ, for including your town. This is for the lawyer. Can the president declare martial law in Los Angeles if the current violence and destruction is not met in turn with jail, injury, or death as consequences? Nothing will solve the stupidity. I know this is an impossible question. Off the top of your head, when's the last time we had martial law anywhere in the United States? Okay. Well, you know what? I have a couple more questions, but we're out of time. Thank you so much for lending your expertise. And look, if you want to send me some questions, I'll just save them up for next time Jeremy Rosenthal's on, and we can just have him answer questions from listeners. I was looking up the posse commas. Not posse comitatus, the martial law stuff used extremely sparingly in the United States, only for like little tiny localized riots, and it hadn't been happened in my entire life. The last one, 1961 or 1963, depending on which source I look at. So there's a quick answer there. Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Thank you so much. All right, if you want to have some fun with this, coming up next, you'll hear what The View thinks of the Los Angeles riots. Of course, it's Trump's fault, so we'll all get a good laugh at that coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM. WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. You want to hear something funny? Donald Trump is at Fort Bragg right now, and we're having a big military parade coming up soon, and it's not, for the glories of the Trump empire. Some people make it out like he's Kim Jong-un here. It's the 250th birthday of the Army, and he's at Fort Bragg. And if you're thinking, wait, didn't Fort Bragg change its name? Yeah, they changed it back. Anyway, they did a flyover. And then I paused it right after the flyover. Listen to his remarks to the crew there. Here we go. All right. So a little bit of a backstory on that. You can kill that. They tried to rename it in May 2022. It was for a brief time called Fort Liberty. And then I think we just changed it back in February, which, I mean, I'm not really that upset about name changes or situations like that. But it's funny how, once you start naming things after people, it's going to be politicized. And so it gets politicized, repoliticized by this guy. And it sounds like the people who were actually there like the fact that it's Fort Bragg. Because do you even know who Fort Bragg is named after? No, I don't either. He's some guy who's a Confederate general, I imagine. I'm not a big fan of the Confederacy, but at this point, when you hear Fort Bragg, do you think of Braxton Bragg? Nobody does. Nobody knows his history. I don't even know if he was a good guy, bad guy. I know nothing of it. Now Fort Bragg just means that place. Like the name has taken over. Like Wrigley Field. That's Wrigley Field. What's Wrigley Field? That's where the Cubs play. You don't think of it chewing gum, even though that was one of the first naming rights that we've seen in stadium history. So that was a cute little intro there for Trump at Fort Bragg. How is the View handling the LA riots? Well, exactly how you think they would handle it. Check out Whoopi saying, man, this is just all Trump's fault. He is so evil.
But I don't really, when you come in and everyone is, when you go into the donut shop to look for people and you're dressed in tactical gear, you're creating an issue. You're creating a problem. You want people to come. You've scared them. Even when people are supposed to be there, when they come to talk to the judge, you're arresting them right after. What is going on here?
I'll tell you what's going on. No. Have you ever been in a tense situation where there was a riot down the road or there was a bunch of civil unrest and you saw someone in tactical gear? Did that make you feel more or less safe? I bet it made you feel more safe. If you're scared about seeing people in tactical gear, no, that's not what's creating a fear of tension. A feeling of tension and fear. How about the burning car out front of the store, more so than the guy in tactical gear just trying to get a donut? Oh, yeah, the tactical guy with a cup of Dunkin' coffee. That's what I'm scared of. Not the guy that's chucking bricks at cop cars. No, that's not scaring me at all. That's not causing any fear or unrest in the community. No, I'm trying to go about my day. Yeah, that smell of burning tires, that's fine. I can't see a guy with a helmet and camo on. The View, they're trying to cope over there. They were saying that this is terrible for Trump's ratings. Oh, really? That's interesting.
To do. What he wants to do is he wants to create a scene. He wants to say, I was justified in sending in the National Guard because look at how violent these protesters are, which they were not until this was exacerbated.
Thank you.
I think he has a strategy here. He is losing support in every area. Inflation, the economy, tariffs, foreign policy. His ratings are dropping.
Even on immigration.
Even on immigration, yes. He's dropping everywhere, even on immigration. Oh, that's interesting. Let's go to Harry Enton. They said this yesterday on The View. I know you didn't watch it, but millions of people do watch The View. Just a few minutes later, Harry Enton on CNN went over those immigration numbers. Check this out.
Yeah, you know, if we just take a look at the baseline numbers here, this is Trump's net approval rating on immigration. It's gone up like a rocket. Compare now versus 8 years ago during Trump's first term. Look at this. In his first term, Trump was way underwater at minus 21 points. But look at this. He's up over 20 points. Now in the aggregate, he is in positive territory at plus 1 point on his net approval rating. Some other polls even have it a little bit higher than that. There is no issue on which Trump is doing so much better than he was in his first term, more than the issue of immigration.
Y'all need to really just double check where you're getting your information, Anna Navarro and The View. And if you're scared when you see police, either you're living in a hellish police state, which is not true here in America in 2025, or you're probably a criminal. You're either in the midst of committing a crime, or people who are adjacent to you are committing crimes, or, you know, living here illegally. You're probably on the wrong side. If cops scare you in this country in 2025, something's wrong with you. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, a report says that in order to be able to afford living in Texas, you have to make $200,000 a year. Ridiculous. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Well, LA is enjoying more riots. Will it continue tonight? I think so. We do have some live shots that are happening now. I keep flipping through the news channels on the commercial breaks here. And I stopped on MSNBC. There's a phalanx of cops set up in Los Angeles. That's some dude's doing a live hit right now. And I don't see any protesters in the street. So maybe the worst is behind us. Maybe the specter of all kinds of Marines showing up and cops showing up ended it. That's all it took. 800-288-9227. This is Fred in Dallas. You're on WBAP. Go.
Yes, I have a problem with you made a statement as far as if you are afraid of the police, then either you are an illegal immigrant or you are like criminals. What about U.S. friendly citizens? You shouldn't be afraid of police if you've been pulled over 6 times in 2 years.
Hang on. Your phone's kind of breaking up. Can you repeat that?
I have a problem with in reference to you making a statement that you should never be afraid of the police.
Well, I'm not saying you should never be afraid of the police, but the idea that police just inherently are scary is brought about more so by, the media manipulation and scare tactics than the actual fact on the ground. If you're
okay, so if you get pulled over 6 times in 2 years and you don't do anything wrong, just regular citizen, you work at a corporation and stuff, and you don't do anything wrong. So, and then you get pulled over at a stoplight. Your kid is in the car with you, and why'd you pull me over? Oh, we're just checking on you. Make sure you, excuse me? What about the other beside me or behind me? Why are you going to take me out of a lineup?
Well, what negative thing happened to is this you? Are we not hypothetically talking about you?
To your children. In 6 times in 2 years.
Man, I wish your phone wasn't.
Shouldn't you be afraid of the policeman?
Well, what happened to you? What were the negative consequences of you being pulled over 6 times in 2 years or whatever it was?
Well, I didn't get a ticket. I didn't get a warning because I didn't do anything wrong. They just pulled me over. Oh, well, we thought you were somebody. But the car, you watch the TV later on, the car is not even affiliated with the car that they pulled over that they were looking for. So why is that?
So why
shouldn't my child be afraid of the police?
Because nothing happened to you. They didn't beat you. They didn't arrest you. They didn't fine you. You didn't lose any money or property. You lost a little bit of time, and that's inconvenience. And, there were some blinky lights that can be a little stressing there. But if that's the entirety of the negative consequences, you still don't have a rational reason to fear cops.
Well, there is if you just driving by one, wondering if you're going to get pulled over again for whatever reason.
Well, I hate to insert myself into your hypothetical here, but there was a time when I did get pulled over 6 times in 1 year. You got to go way back, and I know this sounds really dumb, but around in 2000, my grandmother gave me her spare car because I was driving around in a hoopty. It was a 73 Comet, which is like the Mercury version of a Maverick. And it was like mustard yellow, and like everyone could see it coming from a mile away. And it was old timey looking with the circle lights. And I mean, it was a cheap little $3,000 car, but it kind of looked cool because it was retro. Now, on top of that, I went through a phase of my life where I thought I was an up and coming musician, and I dyed my hair. It was either gray or blue or whatever, or blonde, or I went through a phase where I used to have different colored hair. So have blue hair, drive around in a mustard yellow 73 Comet on a Saturday night and tell me you're not going to get pulled over. I got pulled over probably 6 times in 2 years too. In fact, a couple times, because I'm a big dude, I got pulled out of the car, and they would put me on the hood of the cop car and cuff me and then search my car, just assuming I had drugs. Well, nothing bad ever happened to me because I didn't have drugs. I'm not breaking the law. I'm not trafficking illegals. I'm not beating my wife. There's no warrants against me. So, yeah, I kind of experienced that, and it stinks, and it's a pain in the butt. And, luckily I could change my car and my hair color. I think it's unfortunate if you're getting pulled over for things that you can't change, like the color of your skin. That might be a legit complaint there. But I do not have an inherent fear of the cops, even though that happened to me. So, no, my point still stands. If you have a fear of the cops, just as a default setting, that's an irrational fear.
I didn't have that fear growing up, but I have the fear now when it happens to you in your later years.
You shouldn't.
And your family with you.
You shouldn't.
You know, and it happened 3 times with the family with you, and it's just.
I've been pulled over a couple of times with my family in the car, and they're
my
not.
hair's not dyed yellow or green or orange or blue.
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me? Because I've been pulled over several times with my family in the car, and I think it's a great learning chance for them to see that when a cop pulls you over, you're polite, you give him the information he wants. He wants to see your license, your insurance, registration, whatever. Sometimes I get a ticket. Sometimes I get let go. And I teach my kids, see, you don't have to be scared of getting pulled over. These are cops. They're not going to just pull you out and bonk you on the head for funsies. They're just regular old dudes and neighbors like the rest of us. And I taught my kids that getting pulled over by cops, not a big deal.
Well, I guess it's alarming when you got one cop that walks up to your door, and my daughter looks in the side view mirror and sees another cop had his hands on his gun, per se, like, I'm going to draw it just in case. That's scary.
Okay, I'm sorry you see it that way, but I don't feel like that's a rational fear. I think there's a lot of people who hold your view because that's what they've been taught. Because the only time it really gets reported on, like cop violence, is in a hyper-political, narrative-fitting scenario. And so you've had a steady diet of cops are evil, cops are bad, cops are racist. You've heard of George Floyd. You've heard of Trayvon Martin and Eric Gardner and Michael Brown and all these. Can you name one time a cop has shot an unarmed white person?
Never.
Yeah, see, so do you think it never happens, or does it never get told to you? Does that story never get told to you by the media?
It's not on the media.
No, it is only the media. Actually, more white people, unarmed white people, are shot by cops every year than black people.
I don't see it.
I know you don't. That's the point. See, I'm telling you, you've been fed a steady diet of racial animus against the cops. Your fear is not based on real world evidence or the facts on the ground or statistics or what actually happens in the real world. It's based on the fantasy filter that the media has fed to you over all these years. And I don't expect to undo it today, but I want you to ask yourself, why haven't you ever heard of it? Why haven't you heard of one story where the cops have killed an unarmed white guy?
I read the newspaper. I watch the news every day.
Well, you're you're reading the wrong newspapers and you're watching the wrong news. Have you heard of Tony Timpa?
Never heard of Tony Timpa.
Okay. Go do me a favor. Go look that up. I don't expect to change your mind today, but I want to plant a seed here, and I want you to ask yourself after you read the story, why didn't you hear of Tony Timpa? Because it happened within like a week or two of the George Floyd situation, and it was a guy who was having a drug-related episode. The cops showed up. They put a knee on his back, and he died. He died with a cop kneeling on his back while he was on the ground, face down, next to the sidewalk. You know where it happened? It happened over here off Mockingbird, like just a few miles from where I'm at right now. Now, why do you know more about the suffocating supposed cop kneeling on the back death of some guy in Minneapolis, but not the one in your own backyard? Because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Show it on TV. Show it on TV.
It's not up to me to show it on TV. I don't run CNN or MSNBC or any of the local TV stations. You have to ask yourself, why didn't they show you on TV? They don't want you to see that because you might get the idea that, hey, maybe cops aren't just bloodthirsty, racist monsters that are killing black people for sport. Maybe this happens to white people too. Go look it up. Tony Timpa. I think you will, Fred. I think you sounded pretty reasonable. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Can you survive in Texas on less than $200,000 a year? That's next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I saw an article that I don't know where these come from. I don't know how they get published. I don't know how people take it serious. But it was making the case that in order to live and be able to afford living in Texas, you need to make $200,000 a year. That sounds a little high to me. $200,000 a year to live in Texas? Now, before I even start breaking this down, before I even start picking apart the numbers and doing math, how many people in Texas make more than $200,000 a year? How many households in Texas have a $200,000 income per year? Not much. That's got to be like top 10%, perhaps, because I know nationwide top 10% is less than that. So even if you want to give Texas a little extra credit, $200,000. So I struggle to wonder why they want to lie about this. Why do you need to make stuff up? I found this in the Dallas Morning News, by the way, if you want to check it out. But there's a very important adverb in the headline, because the headline is earn less than $200,000. Your family of four can't live comfortably in Texas. Oh, okay. So they're referencing the financial firm Smart Asset to sort of make the structure around this argument. But when you go break it down, it's the headline. It's a little misleading. Down here in the article itself, it says, to live comfortably in Texas, a person needs about $90,000 a year or $204,000 for a family of four, a report found. Dallas's average median household income is $74,350. How are all of us living in Texas when the median income $74,350? How are all of us who have less than $204,000 for a family, we're just all uncomfortable? And Texas is in the middle of the pack as far as the states go. But really, $200,000, dude, if you drive up to Highland Park, that might be a sensible number. But if you drive 2 hours in any direction, if you're making over $200,000 a year, you live like a king. Let me sort of brag on my own poverty for a second. There's one reason that I still love Bug Tussle, live in Bug Tussle, and have a hard time ever leaving the damn place, is because it's so cheap. I marvel at how different the prices are on things when I go to the grocery store here in downtown Dallas. There's a Tom Thumb that's right next to the station here by the American Airlines Center. I go there quite often. And things are just more expensive here. Your houses are more expensive here. Buying a car is kind of comparable, but your insurance isn't the same. I got a 5-bedroom house in Bug Tussle. Now, granted, I bought it like 3-4 years ago. But what do you think a 5-bedroom house costs out in the middle of absolute nowhere? And I say Bug Tussle because I don't live in any town. I live in unincorporated Smith County. How about that? 5-bedroom house. $300,000. That's it. That's not bad, is it? So I hear a lot of people in major metropolitan areas. I have, of course, a ton of friends in Dallas, but I also have a ton of friends in Houston. I have some family in Austin, and those places are wildly expensive. And they complain about the cost of living all the time. One thing we don't complain about in the middle of nowhere is the cost of living. No, you don't need $200,000 to live comfortably in Texas. You might need $200,000 in income every year to live in your preferred neighborhood with your preferred luxurious lifestyle and creature comforts. But the overwhelming majority of families in Texas are getting along just fine, making less than $200,000 a year. So if it's that easy to shoot down, why do they write articles like this? Because they don't want you to be comfortable. They want you to have a complaint. They want you to have a grievance. They want you to be emotional because then they can exploit that emotion. well, things aren't fair. So then what happens next? Well, you got to find a scapegoat. Well, who's the scapegoat going to be? Everybody who is the political or perceived enemy of the narrative with a little TM next to it. That's all I see when I see stories like this. Coming up next, Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg tried to take a boat to help the people of Gaza. She was going to take them aid, but they didn't really have a whole lot of aid on the boat. It seems like another publicity stunt. She got picked up by the Israeli Defense Force. You'll hear from her coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, welcome to the James Show. I'm your host, James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. And one of the most bizarre stories that was happening in the background over the last week, Greta Thunberg was taking a boat from somewhere in Europe, and she was trying to go to Gaza. Now, what is she going to Gaza for? Is she going to help them fight off the Israeli Defense Force? Well, she was there to take aid to the Gazans. Now, when you look at the boat she's on, it's not that big, and there's quite a few people on it, and some of them were, I guess what we would call dignitaries. I scoff at that word, but there was a member of the European Parliament that was part of this boat ride, and it took like almost 2 weeks of their time. Really, you're in the European Parliament, and you can just walk off the job for 2 weeks to do this, what, aid boat to Gaza? And they were making a blog about it, where Greta Thunberg would do the selfie video. We're headed to Gaza to help out the Palestinians and bring them some aid. But when she would look around and talk to people on the boat, be like, "Where's all the aid? This isn't a very big boat. What are y'all taking them a pizza?" And so when people ask, like, well, what aid are you bringing? How much aid are you bringing? Are you bringing giant, tons of food and whatnot? Are you bringing military supplies? Are you bringing blankets and medicine? What are you bringing? Turns out it was not really aid at all. It was symbolic aid. Oh, yes. Here's imaginary aid. They make fun of thoughts and prayers whenever you say thoughts and prayers are with people in whatever tragedy. This is the ultimate thoughts and prayers. So she's going down there, and what are they going to bring? Like some Lance crackers, some Captain's wafers, something? You going to share your Lunchable with them, Greta? And so I really don't know what the whole point of it was, other than to bring glory to yourself, other than to get yourself some media attention. And that's what happened. It was portrayed as this great act of bravery. This young lady who's now like 22 years old, so it's not even cute anymore. She's just going to go out there and stand side by side with the terrorists in Hamas? What is the plan here if you're not really even bringing food? You just want to do an interview? You trying to get yourself killed? Absolutely not. Now, if you tried to go into Gaza, if you tried to take a boat into Gaza, do you think you'd get the same treatment as her? What do you think happened to her? Because she made it there yesterday, almost. But hang on, let me play you a piece of, this is a video that was released when she got picked up by the Israeli Defense Forces, who are patrolling the water off the coast of Gaza. I mean, Gaza is not that big. It's not even the size of New Jersey. And it doesn't take much to patrol the whole thing. You're not going to get through. They have a blockade. So she made a video. Not that she's been detained or redirected or deported or whatever, intercepted by the Israeli Defense Force. Her videos is, I've been kidnapped by the Israelis.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, because that's what we want to do, make a martyr out of Greta Thunberg. So the Israelis aren't going to do anything to you. They're not the ones that saw off heads and chunk people off of buildings. You're going to be fine. In fact, she was totally fine. I don't know what happened to the rest of the people on her boat, but I know when they said we can deport you back to France if you want to go, or if you want to stay here with the other people that we caught, you can stay. She's like, nope, I think I'll go back to France. So she flew back to France, and then last night she landed, or I don't know, because the time's different there. Like in France, they're like so far ahead of us. I think it's Thursday. But here she is in France talking with the media, continuing this martyr theater.
Both by sea and land to break that siege and open up a humanitarian corridor.
Could I ask you, did you said you had no contact at all with any of your other colleagues from the boat when you were detained? Is that what you said?
No, that's not what I said. I was just mainly speaking, and I don't really know what's going on. Because
you don't know what's going on with the others?
Are you worried about the others?
I wasn't able to say goodbye.
Are you worried about the others, that they might be detained for any length of time?
Yeah, I'm very worried about them. We heard many different messages. pointing towards that they would not make.
Yeah, so the other people on the boat, what happened to them? I don't know. Well, they're not here. Did they not get to come back? I don't know. I didn't check. They didn't let me talk to him. I don't know. Maybe I'll float him a text. Who knows? She knew there was going to be no negative consequences. She knows the Israelis aren't the bad guys. She knows that she's just going to get a free plane ride back, and then all the media is going to be there and write a bunch of glowing, just butt-waxing headlines about her. I can say, though, I'm starting to like that accent. You know, you want to make fun of it because you politically disagree with Greta Thunberg and all of her theatrics around whether it's just global warming or now she's picked up the whole Palestinian thing. But I think I know why I like the accent, because you and I were both trained to love the accent by the Muppets. That the Swedish chef really does do the accent, the Nordic accent. Now I know he's from Norway or she's from Norway and he's from Sweden. But remember, this is a Swedish chef. How on point was this? And I thought it was just a fun little joke. Boy, is that spot on or what? Let me go back to the kidnap video. That was the good one here.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel.
Yeah. I get it. I love the accent. I've been convinced. Don't at me. I'm your host, James Parker. We got one more segment coming up, and we're going to play a fun viral video, give you a couple laughs before you get out of here. 800-288-9227. If you have any final thoughts, I'll fill them in the last segment. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. You know, if there's more riots tonight, we'll have to talk about this again tomorrow. But even if there's not any more riots, we still have something to talk about in the aftermath of this. Because one of the ways that we are all looking to see if there's any difference in the way these rioters are treated versus January 6th. So this is being passed around today on social media. The girl's name is Peachy Keenan. She was on the Zach Pasovich show on Real America's Voice. And she was making the same comparison that you've probably made, talking to your spouse or other friends online about the difference in treatment here.
10 arrests when you see literally thousands of people who need to go to jail. If we're using the January 6th rules, these people need to go to solitary confinement for life, right? I mean, those are the rules, right? You do insurrection, you shove a cop, you threaten a cop, you go to jail for 40 plus years. I thought that's the rules. These people, they'll arrest a few of them. I doubt any of them will do serious time. I mean,
so in the aftermath, we're going to get to see if the application of justice is any different depending on your political persuasion. Because Peachy Keenan is right. They set the yardstick. One of the whiplash things that we saw was in 2020, dozens of cities burned. For months at a time, there was a constant revolving set of riots, property destruction, violence against other human beings, depending on what metric you use, between 37 and 70 people dead at these riots. And there was no grand roundup. They didn't get people's cell phone data and everyone who trespassed on that day is going to be held to the fullest extent of the law. No, there was a lot of people, including Kamala Harris, who was raising money to bail these people out. The whiplash happened when in January of 2021, all of a sudden, tracking down every rioter that didn't even knock over the velvet ropes in Statuary Hall was not only okay, it was a moral imperative, and they threw the book at him. And she's right. Some guys who assaulted cops got like 40 years. You had a cop with a pole and you got 40 years? I know people who've been convicted of murder and only got 30 years. So now it's going to be interesting to see if it swings back in the other direction. And while, yes, it'll be an injustice, and I'm not going to celebrate it, this is just all the evidence that any rational, critical thinking person would need to say, hey, something's wrong here. Something's not being applied equally. And on top of all the other coolness that's happened on the James Show lately, I've hooked up with the lectern guy. From January 6th, you know, the guy, there's the picture. He's got the beanie hat on with the pom-pom on the top, and he's got Nancy Pelosi lectern, like the little podium that she stands at, and he's walking casually with it, and he's like waving hi. He's got a big smile on his face, you know, like he just picked up the new PlayStation 5, or he got an advanced copy of Grand Theft Auto 6 or something. I mean, he looks so happy. And so he showed up on one of these chains and, you know, saying they should throw the book at him like they threw the book at me. And someone replied that, hey, you stole a lectern. You deserve to go to prison. He's like, I didn't steal the lectern. I moved it a few feet in the process of a photo op. You know how much time he did? 75 days in federal prison. He pled guilty to misdemeanor trespassing. Did 75 days for misdemeanor trespassing. 20 days in isolation for a misdemeanor, for misdemeanor trespassing. You know how much misdemeanor trespassing you just saw just this weekend in Los Angeles? You know how much misdemeanor trespassing we just saw in Dallas over all the protests, not just last night, that we've had all year between the Palestinian protests, the anti-Israeli protests, the immigration protests, the race protests, whatever it is. There's been tons of protests. The protests at UT Dallas were the 75 days. And when you plead, you're supposed to get like a softer deal. That's supposed to be the nice trade-off. Misdemeanor trespassing plea deal, 75 days in prison. How about we get the lectern guy on the James Show? Would y'all like to hear from the lectern guy on January 6th? Because I bet he's got some hot opinions about the how the rioters on June 7th, 8th, 9th should be adjudicated, maybe even the 10th. But we'll check back in, see if we can get him on the show soon. A couple things before I get out of here. Number one, we're looking for another location for a James Show meetup. I think I have the one for June settled out, so I'm looking one for July. All I'm looking for is a place in the metropolitan area where either the owner or the manager is a James Show listener, and it'll be free. I'm not going to charge anybody to come out there or have me out there. It's just something we do once a month if you're new to the show. I like to meet you, and I like y'all to meet each other and be friends. Also, if you're a Texas Ranger fan, one day from tomorrow, Wednesday, June 18th, they're going to be playing the Kansas City Royals here at Globe Life Field. It's Dollar Hot Dog Wednesday for cheapos like me. Yeah. Shout out. I'm not cheap. I'm economically efficient is what we call it. But this will make it even more economically efficient. You could win some tickets from us. If you want to buy the tickets, go to TexasRangers.com. But I would wait a second. Go ahead and text the word Rangers to the same phone number I give for the call out, 800-288-9227. Text the word Rangers. You'll be entered in a contest to win a family 4-pack of tickets. And if you're like, well, that's a waste of time, what are the odds? It's pretty good. Not as many people enter these contests as you might suspect. So text, if you want to get some free tickets or a chance, text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227 for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets. Rangers, 800-288-9227. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate your time. I hope I made it worth your while. Come back tomorrow. We'll do it again. In the meantime, if you need more James Show, go check out the James Show podcast and stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.